welcome to another episode of The Music Prophet. Or today we're doing a quick promotion for the only way to call it is one-of-a-kind show, because the musician is CR Avery, and he is a spoken word poet, he's a beatboxer, he's written country music, rock albums, and then he'll suddenly just switch and get back into doing slam poetry about Pierre Trudeau. You never know what you'll get, and it's going to be interesting. So thanks for coming on, CR.
There's just something about, I like Dave Chappelle line about, I want to be on the right side of history. And that's just not on stage. That's in life.
Yeah, for sure, and especially with the way that the culture itself is starting to progress. We're getting into a stage where people want to hear the real truth most of the time, right?
And that's different for every person. In the early days of spoken word, we'd be in these rooms, and you mentioned Trudeau, but the friendship with Trudeau Sr. and Castro, I found very fascinating. And there was a line that was said about them that they agreed to disagree. But there was respect between the two. But they didn't, the views were very different, but they respected one another. And in the early days of spoken word, everyone was speaking their truth. And everyone gave them the respect to listen. And, and it was a beautiful moment to be able to be in that room. Not as much to speak, but to listen. And then, you were allowed on the mic and you had to have something to say. But, I've been thinking about that lately, how lucky I was in that world at that time.
And especially the way that it influenced your music as well, I feel like, too.
Tremendously. Paige Francis talks about that. Where, he wasn't hanging out with rappers a little bit, but he was hanging out with spoken word people. I mean, I just did a show in St. Catharines, and a bunch of poets, started off the show. And even when I tour with rock bands, I always have poets opening night, because it really sets the right tone. I think it's always there, eating at me. But, same with anyone that was 14 years old and saw Do the Right Thing. Listen to Bob Dylan. I mean, that stuff stays with you just in regular life.
Is there something about that? Because that is a trend, does it make a difference when you have a singer-songwriter opening a show instead of a spoken word poet, or?
It depends on, I think it's just one of those things. I just know lots of poets. And there's I think it could be like, you could have a great, if you're doing one thing, maybe don't have the beginning of the show be the same. So if I was doing a whole night of spoken word, I may have a comedian or a folk singer or great country singer open up. Because I've been thinking about this lately, about just, I think Johnny Carson had a thing to a degree, but man, I think Ed Sullivan had a bigger thing, and I wish these talk show, like acting actors, pre-written questions about what they did on their summer holidays should die, and go back to like the cabaret where you'd have like a dancer, a singer-songwriter, a comedian, like those shows. I love that format. I wish it would come back, because those are the best nights out, when I get a little bit of everything.
And that secret, I remember when I was younger, I used to watch the Ellen DeGeneres show, and it worked beautifully that way. She'd have such a mix of talent.
What was the name, brother?
Ellen DeGeneres?
Yeah, but, it's still a talk show. Like, Ellen's a stand-up. That's where she came from. Mm-hmm. Imagine if she didn't, sit on lazy boys and talk to someone, and comedians trying to like fit in their jokes. Like imagine it was like Ellen, boom, comes out, does 2 minutes of stand up, and then ladies and gentlemen, Pearl Jam, boom, one song, and then ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Dave Chappelle, boom, all right, and then so on and so forth. Like, and then you get people that thought they didn't like rock and roll, or they don't like hip hop, or they don't like stand up, or they don't like ballet, all of a sudden being exposed to it.
Mhm.
Anyways.
But I think that's actually a good point, though, right? Because that's something that I feel like you've had to deal with over the years too, isn't it?
I just get bored. I get bored easy, and I just always believe when it's good, it's good. Like I love country music, but I hate country music. When it's, everything stops when you hear that lyric that just goes boom. It's the same with hip hop. So people that can't see the two correlating, I don't get it. One is songwriter and one is lyricist. They're both. And then the same thing with reading some old shit on a page or new shit on a page. It's just gotta be good. I think, what did Duke Ellington say? There's only good music and bad music.
Yeah, there's only two sides, right? There's nothing in between.
I heard a rapper from Seattle. What is he? I don't know if I can paraphrase. I can't do it. Maybe it will come to me. It was a good line. It was on the same ocean.
What is over the years, has that changed for you?
Oh yeah. It's you either make music for the times or timeless music.
Which is a great line. It's completely accurate too.
That's a good line. But sometimes they trick you. Like I think when Lady Gaga came out, man, I think Poker Face is gonna live as long as I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. I think it's a badass tune. Because there's also smart hustlers. A lot of people think Jay-Z is this pop rapper, and I was just like, man, he was doing all that, triple time and poetry for other poets when he seemed like when he was 15. He just wanted the bigger piece of the cake. And I respect that. I respect, what Springsteen did and what John Prine did. It just depends what you want, as far as a live show to be.
Yes, I guess almost in the way that Kanye West's Graduation album sort of set the tone for the next while and took what the old musicians just were trying to pull off, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kanye is an interview in itself.
Mhm.
But I just his music blows my mind.
Who are some other artists that you find that you wish you could work with or be or almost pretty much be?
Well, I mean that's a slippery slope. I mean that
It
can
is.
turn into a film script. And on the peripheral, I think it's kind of it's interesting when you see the things that you didn't think would ever happen, like the whole Dave Chappelle and John Mayer. Like I would not have seen that coming, and then it made me, I think I maybe prejudge because he's so good looking and you just want to hate his guts a little. I don't know, but man, I heard a comedian talking about seeing those two live, and he was like, someone talking that just saw that last Leonard Cohen tour or something. I mean, he could just tell that it was a night of beauty. I saw some cool shit. It was Neil Young and Waylon. And it was when Neil, he put out he put out Rust Never Sleeps, and he said rock and roll will never die, and then he just went full country. And he had that 80-year-old fiddler in his band, and real deal cats, and then there he is up with Waylon. I was like, it's so badass. So I like collaborations. I worked with a group called the Sojourners, and it kind of just happened through CBC, where they were pairing up people, and we toured all over together, recorded tons. We became friends. And, just with my language sometimes, I don't think anyone thought that a gospel group would work with me. But they're still my friends. And we made some good art together. I mean, I think I had fun with it anyway.
But you're also open-minded. It's when if anyone even just glances at what you've done artistically, it's pretty obvious that it's just all open to any concept, idea, sound.
Yeah, and maybe that could be my downfall. Like, I don't know if I have a hip hop song recorded that is as good as Dead Prez, or I don't know if I have an acoustic guitar song as good as Desolation Row, or a country song as good as anything Hank Williams ever recorded. So, I mean, maybe I should have, honed in a little bit. But it's not who I am.
Is that something that you think about when you make music, though?
Well, you can complain to the cows come home about, the CDs don't sell anymore, or, you don't have the right manager, or blah, blah, blah. I mean, can you play like Louis Armstrong? No, so shut the fuck up. Like, talent is supreme. That is everything. And I think everyone is like doing their own booking and their own managing and their own social media. And that's just cutting down to people woodshedding, people working at their craft. Of course, you're always like, I remember my father, who is like a highwayman. He built roads. He worked for the highways. And he grew up on a farm in the Depression and the war. And in the 80s, he got a cassette player. And then there was that thing, play record. And he heard his voice for the first time. And he's like, that's not me. And we're like, Dad, that's you. Like, that's us. And he was like, nah, I don't sound like that. And it kind of like freaked him out for a sec that that's what he sounded like. He never heard his voice. That's, you're playing your song and then you actually hear it and you go, God, that sucks. That's awful. No wonder they're not like, or other times like, God damn, that's better than I thought. I heard this thing once that Jimi Hendrix was a guy that recorded so much, not to put it out, but to practice or to get better. He was using that medium as like a final, the final tool to get better. I think of that as spoken word. A lot of time memorizing pieces is the best editor. You go, man, I hate this chunk. I can't memorize it. And then you kind of go, well, maybe I won't do it.
Right, and that is a methodology in music too, where I've heard from, even on my show in the last 25, 30 episodes, that it's a common theme that the more albums you release, it's practice. Like, you play a gig, it might be 10 people, but you're just practicing for the bigger stage somewhere.
Nah, I don't know about that bullshit, to be honest, because I heard this great thing when I was really young from somewhere in the jazz world, that if you're always practicing, like, I'm going in my room and I'm practicing, how is that different than when you get on a stage? Are you practicing then? Because sometimes I watch some jazz musicians and I listen to their solos and I'm like, are you practicing your scales in front of me? Like, what the hell are you doing? I'm bored. There's got to be a thing where you're playing music, whether you're, in the room or like flying Willie Mattel just beneath the trees as your only audience, or if you're playing in front of 10 people or 100,000, it's just music. But some artists are taking those chances. When it's just you're practicing that stride piano, which is tricky. But man, I watch some people live and they're going for it, trying to do shit they never done before in front of an audience. Whatever, everyone has what gets them inspired.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. So we're gonna have to wrap it up quick.
Let's do it.
Cool. So thanks for coming on. That was great, and I think I'm excited. Well, it's gonna be. I think everyone's gonna be pretty excited because it's going to be. You'll be at Spacecraft on Saturday. Tomorrow. Yeah. At 7. So I'm stoked to see what you come up with, and I think that, like, especially what we chatted about today, the musicality.
And I'm also real excited too because we didn't really get into it, but like as far as tours go, you know, it's hard to. The first couple shows, you're kind of doing your last act from your last tour, you know, because you know it works. But it's like once you're on tour for 2 or 3 weeks, that's when you're like really hitting your stride. So it's good. I've been on tour for a bit, so I'm real excited to get up there in Sudbury and rock and roll.
Yeah, and it's gonna be great. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It was a really good chat too.
And well, thanks for doing your show, brother, and thanks for thinking of having me on it.
Oh, absolutely, anytime. I mean, ever since the Northern Lights performance that Max brought you to, it's one of those things that Sudbury deserves to hear more of it. So
well great. Please spread the word in the social medias and everything. You know, the same thing, like Max, he's taken a lot of gambles with artists that maybe Sudbury or smaller cities would not book because, you know, they don't want to ruffle feathers. But he took a chance, and just like he took a chance to book me on Saturday. So it's just like for country music, you know, like they're gonna do the cardboard bad rock with the violin, cheesy lyrics if it's selling, right? But then you have like when Waylon and the boys showed up, they're like, shit, this is actually selling better. We have to, you know, we have to give respect to this. You got to acknowledge it, but they won't acknowledge it until you start selling more than the cardboard cutouts. So Max has taken the risk of booking me. I just want to make sure that it sells as well as 2 fiddles and a banjo from Nova Scotia, you know.
Yeah, and I guess we'll find out tomorrow. So thanks for coming on, and for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. And October 5th at the Spacecraft, come out and see the show. It's going to be something that you don't want to miss.
Oh, and that's putting it mildly.
Yes. All right, awesome, man. Thanks for the chat.
All right, thanks, Les. Peace.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.